meditation has been number one. I do it every day, twice a day, 3 times a day formally, but I also like to say that meditation is brought into other things that don't really look like meditation per se. So I think that's the essence of meditation, is we bring that spirit of the Tao into the goings on of our life. And then when you do bring that spirit of the goings on of your life, if you can reform that mental muscle, the goings on of your life change. Seemingly, it seems like you do become the sort of magician to this whole thing, with that seat of nothingness, that seat of awareness of non-being. It seems like from non-being, the act of becoming changes up, and the miracles do happen. The magic happens in one's life, and ultimately it just becomes more enjoyable.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and seafood Taoist Master San Qing. And I don't know, I'm just not tired of this. It's Christmas morning again. I come down to the tree and look what the universe has brought me, this incredible being. I want to welcome to the podcast Gary, who is a conscious seeker, an asana, a yoga practitioner, and he is also a contributor to the Conscious Collective with an incredible podcast platform that he's been embodying for quite some time, with an audience of many different masters going deep into their exploration of who they are and sharing it with the platform. Welcome to the podcast today, my friend.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I'm very excited to see where this is going to end up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beautiful part about this sort of space of conversation, is just having a beautiful conversation with someone else that wants to share in just being. So what I'd like you to do is just start with just a little backstory, couple of inroads into how you started and how you got here today.
Sure. It's always a tough question for me to answer. You know, where did this all start? Where did this all begin? In terms of the YouTube journey, what everybody sees online, it started when I was actually taking training for my yoga teaching, and it was during the COVID era, so we couldn't meet. We had to do it all over Zoom, and we were specifically doing a yoga philosophy class. And the teacher, who was actually the first guest that I've had on the podcast, the teacher, he just knew so much, and I just never heard that stuff before. So much Dharma that was imbued in the class. And I recognized I was asking the guy a lot more questions than anybody else in the class. And I said, wait a second. I'm interviewing this guy. It feels like I'm interviewing this guy right now. So something just clicked that day where I said, well, if I'm doing it now in this formal setting, why don't I just do this myself? Find people that have a lot more wisdom than I do. They know more than I do. Bring them on Zoom and conduct an interview from my bedroom. And 200 episodes later, that's exactly what I've done. It was all inspired by that moment, which I didn't know was going to happen like that. And it's weird because it's like COVID had to happen for me to have the inspiration of conducting virtual interviews. But here we are, like I said, and that's how the cookie crumbles.
Amazing, my friend. It is. It's that spark of curiosity that puts you in the threshold of, the crossover, the intersection of, intellect, intuition, and realizing that center point is where you need to be. And human beings have this incredible obsession with a cycle very similar to the cycle of the circadian rhythm of the earth, being what you must start, you must finish. From a psychology's perspective, people would refine this as a heteroaction. This is a behavior that humans have. And then, of course, you set forth into something greater discovering that nothing is as it seems. It's far deeper than that, and that's when you
Mhm.
get that bug. I feel
Yeah.
like you got that bug. You were bitten by that bug quite some time ago, my dear friend.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I still am. Every conversation that I have, every day that I wake up, the bug keeps biting. And the more it bites, the more it bites. That's the thing. The journey seriously never ends. The journey is the destination, is the cliche, right? Truly, on this path, that is what happens. It just continually unfolds. And that's the beauty of it. Of the miracle of just infinite wisdom, you could say, being endowed keeps just flowing in and flowing in. Like I see these conversations as part of my sadhana, my spiritual practice. This is just a meditation in a way for me to ultimately grow and elevate myself to I don't know, higher states of consciousness, freedom, liberation, peace, joy, unity, whatever you want to call it. It's all part of the practice. And yeah, the bug never stops biting.
So it's quite interesting. You gravitated through your own intuition to something that is more, a very ancient sort of starting point, Sanskrit, Hindu sort of yogi pathway.
Hmm.
You mentioned a specific type of level of consciousness. Would that be similar to Shakti? Would it be similar to, you know, um, are you gravitating to Shiva, Buddha? Where does it take you, or is it just embodying all those things as one? How are you perceiving your reality, and what are you resonating with?
Hmm. Some big questions here. We're only about 5 minutes in. Well, I like to say, and this is from the Rig Veda, the truth is one, and the wise call it by many names. So you can call it Krishna consciousness, you can call it Christ consciousness, you can call it the Buddha mind, Brahman, whatever you really want to call it, doesn't matter. Um, but when you feel it, you know. So
Amen to that, brother. Amen
yeah.
to that.
So whatever that feeling is, I don't know when it happened. Like I said, I can't specifically pick a point, and I don't even know if you want to call it a feeling, but more of this like an insight that was granted through, I don't know, grace, you could say, that insight into my being. Um, yeah, I just follow that, and I continually tread the path on whatever brings me to that insight. And that's usually through conversation. Like I said, conversation and meditation. Conversation and meditation will bring me to that insight of the Krishna consciousness, the Christ consciousness. Um, and just go with that. Yeah, just go with that. But it's effortless. It's not something that requires any sort of work, you could say. And I think we mentioned this before we started recording. It's very, very easeful in the approach toward this state of consciousness, because it's our innate being, it's our natural being. No matter what happens on the outside world, no matter what comes and what goes, this state of no state, it's here and now. It's apparent. It's like you don't have to do anything really per se. Um, yeah. So whatever brings me to that remembrance and that reminder, I go with that. It doesn't matter what it's called, what it looks like. It doesn't. The guru is in everything technically. So yeah, intuitive guidance leads the way.
You had me at hello. Now this is my bag, baby, and I may be reminiscing a little bit of Austin Powers, but let's be real. This is a starting point, as you said. It's more than a feeling, but it
Yeah.
starts there. And so
Mm,
that feeling for me, when I share this with others, the seekers of what it is that is remembering who they really are, that truth as they know it to be is this realization that if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And so
Mm.
that visceral effect is still a catalyst. It's still present in your simulation. So it's not just a sort of a throwaway, but it's an actual evidence-based, self-evident realization. So the tuning fork of this physicality is quite useful as an anchor to what you would perceive as 3D reality. But for us to even perceive a 3D reality, you're actually in the 4th D. But that's semantics as we want to speak on it. But truthfully, you're one breath away from embodying what someone would conceive within a quantum model as this dimensional shift, which is a very new language. I'm not exactly sold on it. I'm more into the ancient stuff that's thousands of years old. But quantum has a way of deciphering things for people, so they get a somewhat of a grip on where they're at, or a starting point. And I'm really a big believer in, when you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. And so the student is the teacher is the student. If the seeker loses that, they've lost their consciousness. They're just stagnant. They're literally just fallen back into this very limited simulation, and they'll stay there. It's so beautiful hearing you reference these points of awareness from a dear friend of the channel, James Tooney. He refers to it as spiritual consciousness, and I like to realize and define that that's really a bigger point, because we use the consciousness as a defining moment, but it's starting to get hijacked by academia and starting to separate the seeker from their truth as all is one, one is all. When you start using conscious agency and things of this nature, which become very mechanistic, and it's designed for a reason. Linguistics are designed to either lure you to a oneness or stray you from your path. It can be a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about that type of perception?
About semantics and how they can be either useful or harmful? Is that what
Well,
you're
yeah,
asking?
just looking at your lens, because you were very forthcoming with the audience, and you're extremely wide open, allowing, receiving, which is a huge component of a seeker's journey, is to be able to identify as nothing, and then all things will be realized. And so that's, one of the things that a lot of people lose sight of. And for example, within human history, if you want to be as corny as to reference something like The Secret as a kickoff of manifestation, that's why it was very problematic for most people, because the one big question that stumped everybody was, what are your values? Now, you separate yourself from pure source, the right here, the right now, which means you're nothing. That means that you give yourself a value system. You are separate. You are identifying as the reflection in the mirror that looks back at you, as though this flesh and blood is your identity. And that, for a seeker, will be very problematic and quite frankly diffusing the journey. And if it's coming from a manifestation level, you will be very disappointed, as you'll fall short continually due to the fact that you're tripping over yourself.
Yeah. Okay. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I see a lot of the spirituality, the whole spiritual realm being hijacked in that way.
Mhm.
You could just say simply people are just trying to make a buck off of it. People are trying to look cool. I don't see anything particularly wrong with that.
Mm.
But how do I put this? Yeah, I mean, true spirituality, if you want to call it that, doesn't involve money. It doesn't. There's no need for it to be hijacked for any kind of value set, if that makes sense. The modern way of doing things, I think it's noble, but it's like it can be another trap. And I think a lot of it is being presented maybe using the same terminology that the ancients have used, but it could just be another trap, man. It could just be another trap for people. Create another identity, the spiritual ego, the spiritual identity. You become the seeker. And that is noble. It's a noble desire. It's a noble pursuit, like I said. But eventually you got to give that up too. Eventually that has to go as well. That might be the last attachment. But I think, how do I put this, man? How do I put this? It's, I think it's good. It's a good thing that like this whole spiritual is becoming cool, if you want to say that. You know, it's becoming popular. But is it really beneficial at the end of the day? Is it really what we need in order to recognize this state of no state? I don't know. I actually don't have the answer to that. I think some will and some won't. You know, put it this way. I didn't have to pay anything in order to realize this. I think in order to become God realized, if you want to call it that, you don't have to pay any kind of money. You don't have to have a teacher. All you need is some quiet time. That's it, actually. You need a lot of quiet time. And guidance is wonderful. If you have guidance, a true teacher, that is awesome. I have plenty of teachers, but I know that I don't need them. You know, at the end of the day, it comes back to you. So, moral of the story is the hijacking. It's hard to generalize. I think it's noble and it can be useful, but you really don't need it in any sort of way. Like true spirituality, all you need is yourself, some quiet time, and your breath. And that's it. And then one can come to find this state of no state, this higher state of awareness. And that'll lead the way, man. Did that answer your question though? Was that
I
succinct?
mean, there is no right or wrong answer. It's sort of like a progressive realization for the seeker, as we refer to it. It's sort of like, where are you at? And you're, as a friend of the channel, Tom Campbell, would say, what's your entropy level? Is it low or high? What, as a dear friend of mine, Martin, a Buddhist monk, would say, what's your dukkha? Is it how distorted? This is all he spends his time. He's not into the energetics. He's not into any other realization than observing his dukkha and making sure that it's not hijacking or commandeering his experience,
Yeah.
whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it? What is the value to you? I believe that materialism and nihilism are sort of like synonymous with each other in the sense of the pairing. It's almost like you don't realize you're there. It's like that's the misdirection. Hang on, I was on a path of realization, but with that comes not believing in anything. It's the distraction. And one of my teachers will reference this quite clearly: the Jade Emperor. When you accept you know nothing, you know everything. And that is this present moment. You can't be more powerful than that. And right from the scriptures, we make it very clear: let the man who's never left his village, let him know he's seen the world. It's right here. It's
Yep.
right here.
It's
That
that simple.
charge that you got right now, my friend, is another evidence-based, self-evident realization.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means that, holy moly, I'm resonating with that. And it's becoming even more powerful. And the more the surge, the more the realization, and it's an attunement. So if we accept that, everything is energy, frequency, vibration, in its summation, your whole life is a thought, feeling, and an emotion. That's it. And what does that really mean? Well, first and foremost, as a seeker, as a Taoist, the first thing I like to get off the table is your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. And people are like, whoa, what are you saying? Well, this is a distraction part of the human, or what people call the human condition, which is a start off point for you to separate yourself and stay in a materialistic sort of like a simulation that will ultimately lead to your very short lived life in this re up, instead of realizing that you're all things and nothing at the same time. And that means when you truly believe that you are not of this body, what can harm you? Nothing.
Hmm.
Nada. Zero.
Yeah.
And so, I really find it profound that your own journey, your own seeking, you've come to this incredible realization. And like you said, all it takes is a little quiet time and your breath, and you can be realized. Now, this is conceptual for most people until otherwise noted. And in most cases, they're still in the simulation of their emotional content, some of their life experiences. And that's problematic because that's what they face on a daily basis. And for all the people out there that are listening, this means that you're unconscious. If you are emotional, you're suggestible. You are not commandeering anything. You are being commandeered. All thoughts of your mind are not yours.
Hmm.
Then whose are they if they're not mine? Well, this is where we get into the interesting question of the seeker, that very question. And where do we go with that? Well, it's about being present, it's about the now. And so that center point can be referenced across all different types of belief systems and ancient indigenous practices that will return you to the center point. Within Taoism, it's between the breath in and the breath out. We call it the Wu Ji, the stillness, which is the mother of all things, the Tao. And then when you get that, it's like, whoa, hang on a second. Did you say the mother? Oh yes, it's not referenced as a gray-haired angelic being coming down with a staff that's going to bless you when you're inside to what reality is. No, we refer to it as the mother. Now, the greater insight to that goes across all platforms. The level of intuition, yin energy, because we don't look at things, even though people perceive Taoism as a dualistic sort of perception, it's not. It's just identifying with two energies that within a 3D reality, within a dualistic sort of perception, you would consider these polarizing, and the effects of that would be reflection of the electromagnetic spectrum. When I speak of the Tao, that is beyond that. It is whole, it is perfection manifest, as someone would refer to as the universe, as God, as Buddha. Everyone finds their own source, their pure source realization. When measured, this very intense substance will return you to perfection. And
Hmm.
that present moment is when you will realize that. That means that profound things take place. I like to show people, physical healings, manifestation, magic, whatever is on the menu. But that takes being nothing.
Yeah.
All things are nothing at the same time. And that's where it can be problematic, perhaps. How do you share this sort of insight with people that you're sharing your yogic practices with, and getting them started on their own journey? What would you give them as insight as a starting point?
Hmm. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because we all have our own circumstances, our own dukkha, our own karma, you could say. Uh, if somebody asked me that question, I would actually say that you're already started. You have some inkling of curiosity that has led you to that question. You have already started. So go with that, follow that curiosity even further. But in terms of like a modality or a practice, getting back to it, meditation. Meditation has been number one for me. I do it every day, twice a day, 3 times a day formally. But I also like to say that meditation is brought into other things that don't really look like meditation per se. So I think that's the essence of meditation, is we bring that spirit of the Tao into the goings on of our life. And then when you do bring that spirit of the goings on of your life, if you can reform that mental muscle, the goings on of your life change seemingly. It seems like you do become the sort of magician to this whole thing with that seat of nothingness, that seat of awareness of non-being. It seems like from non-being, the act of becoming changes up and the miracles do happen. The magic happens in one's life, and ultimately it just becomes more enjoyable. And you mentioned this um previously in what you just said. Really, a big incentive to that whole thing too is that nothing can harm you. Really, what you are or aren't, depending on how you look at it, you are invulnerable to whatever happens to you. And it's actually not to you. That's the thing. It's a changing of perspective. It's for you. It's for you. One can start to see from this seat, this throne of awareness, that everything happens for you. There is no bad, there is no good. It's just like it's all part of the journey. Um so yeah, it's, I guess it's like a twofold answer. It's how do we start? You start by meditating, and then you slowly start to bring that essence of meditation in your life, and then when that happens, it's just a miracle. I don't know how else to explain it. When you do live from that meditative state, easier said than done. I'm not perfect. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say I do that all the time. That's what the saints and sages do. But from my regular practice over the recent years, I have found that I am able to touch upon that wavelength a lot more often than before I had a meditative practice, before I did it regularly. Work in progress for all of us, but I can only be a testament for everybody listening. If you do that, if you have a regular meditation practice, 10, 15 minutes a day, maybe 20, I don't know. If you do that regularly, you will start to find that your life will change. And it might not even be like a drastic change. It might be, but even just like subtle changes of how you see things, how you see people. And then from that perspective shift, that, like I said, the magic is that it becomes quantum. And when you see it differently, it actually is different. What is that quantum theory? When you, I forget the name of it now, but when you observe something, it changes the position of the particle. You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about? Yeah. Well, that's the quantum element of when you come from nothingness, that the it's like it changes up and makes it so much more beautiful in how it appears to the
Wasn't it the
consciousness.
double split experiment or something like that? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm
I
lacking.
know
I'm
you're
not.
too into the semantics. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. It's like you are light to wave to particle to matter. Your attention intention creates the distortion of this 3D reality. You are literally cutting out from perfection a frequency that has a vibration that is an energy from your intent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's your reality.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is the intent behind that? Like, if what is the intent in a meditative practice? Would you say like peace? I intend for peace.
Well, it's a synchronization. It
Yeah.
returns you to who you really are, and that is not um, commandeered or hijacked by the emotional state. That it's like a micro of a macro. Emotions are literally the disturbance within the cosmos. You are perfection, yet the emotions are changing the vibration and the resonance of your whole cosmos. And so everything within you is nothing more than a micro of that. And so the emotions are rippling out and creating disorder as opposed to a synchronized fluidity that is represented by the now.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that resonance, once you hold that, the longer you hold that, which would be in reference to your meditative practices, it becomes much more of an effortless action, as we would say, wu wei, to return to what you know.
Yeah.
and then the welcoming of other states. That within Taoism we look at the virtue to the emotion. You remove the emotion and reveal the virtue, and that welcoming of that state becomes your conscious default.
Mm-hmm.
Within Taoism, we have these 5 stages of awareness: concept, consciousness, knowing, unconscious knowing, and then being one with all things. And that
Mm.
goes through the development of these different bodies of awakening, which most people have sort of reference to the astral body, the etheric body, the causal body. I mean, we can go on, but within Taoism, it's quite simple. It's a physical, energetic, spiritual. Then you go into the sun body, the earth body, the moon, and then ultimately the last clip to hit you to that highest point of knowing is the oneness, the ultimate, and then being with all things
Mm-hmm.
as the now.
Mm-hmm.
And so those stages of I don't know, remembering are really powerful, and it comes with the alchemical processes that we I may sound a little biased being a Taoist priest for 30 years, but we have that down. We're second to none, and that's why people seek out that alchemy, i.e. Bruce Lee is a great one,
Mm.
because it's so powerful. That internal alchemy is second to none, and it's kind of in reverse too, because a lot of people just refer to it within the cauldron setting and how you develop the dantian, the energy field, by developing this infrastructure that is internal, so that you can separate electric from magnetic at will. And so the first lowest entropy is realizing this, and holy moly, meditation has just changed my whole state of being, and the emotions are not seeping in and permeating my experience, and I'm able to remove this noise that I call myself,
Mm-hmm.
and now I can be all things,
Yeah.
and that present moment is the now. And it can be very simplistic for seekers, and then it can be very problematic depending upon where they're at their own level of that state. And once you get there, I mean, magical things take place. Magical, crazy,
Yeah.
wild, miracles,
Yeah.
as it should be, because that's really what we're returning to, perfection. And a lot of the prophets and the channelers, I mean, I channel my teacher Lao Tzu, and I'm in concert with him on a day-to-day basis, second by second. He's my dialogue until I need to go to the monologue, which is the mother.
Mm.
And so he's like my Siri, who gives me the direct source information, and then I take that and embody the mother, and then it's all bets are off. So there some people would refer to it as Akashic records. I mean, I see him as I see you. It's a develop of clear sense, or a clear development of awareness. So the idea that the human, in its basically the construct of the nature of the physicality, cannot perceive 99% of the light spectrum that is in front of them. Well, within the Taoist practices, I teach people how to see the other 99%. So all day long, it's a fun factory for me. Auras, information, energy is just with my eyes open. That's another day in the office, my friend. And so this is just a developmental skill. There are no limits. I would say that observation wise, over 30 years, all it takes is your imagination and you're off to the races.
Mm.
And with that, you develop the substance. We call it the substance, the palpable density. That is, you're basically bringing perfection to a distorted state and returning it to that. And you're that catalyst and conduit that is really observing. And it just so happens your attention intention, from a Tom Campbell perspective, he would call it the large consciousness system. He's beating off his intellectual perception and knowing that he has sort of like his intuitive state, where all the paranormal, all the profound mystical stuff happens in that state. But quite frankly, it's the center, versica, the center point It's right now. And, we go deep. We go deep. But the truth is, your probability of changing that state just starts with your attention intention. And people, it's making it repeatable that they can actually experience it. So that visceral experience is critical to your own development. So it's not just sort of like a whimsical experience. And now I want people to be very clear. Perhaps that's what you would like, a whimsical experience of just floating and being one with all things. And that's cool. That's all. That's it. That's the story. My dear friend Martin, the Buddhist monk, that's all he does. Is like, I'm not big on the energy stuff and feeling all this stuff. It actually irritates me. All I want to do is observe my dukkha and remove it, and I'm cool. This is my journey. Hey, it's whatever you want it to be. There's not a script that tells the seeker how you're supposed to roll this thing out, other than the seed or the starting point is this conversation. And it just so happens it's a jump off point for anybody who listens. They cannot walk away without having a fundamental subatomic alteration of their reality due to the resonance that we're sharing in right now. And so that's why this is taking place. And I believe perhaps maybe you have a similar message. Mine is to help people remember, to return to who they are.
That's it.
That's it. And so you've had such an incredible lineup of people that you've interviewed over the life of your podcast. What would you say is the most profound, or the one that really has left you wanting more in relation to that lineup?
Too many. I like to say all of them. I've done actually a fair amount where I just don't post them, to be honest with you, because it didn't move me. So all the ones that you see had some effect on me in the moment. So all of them. I'll say all of them. And that may seem crazy to say. I've done over 200 at this point, but I think all of them are valuable. I mean, some more so than others, let's be honest, but all of them I revere so greatly. And all of them, if there are any super fans out there, are saying the same thing. Like I said in the beginning, the truth is one, and the wise called by many names. So I repeat myself very often in them. My guests repeat what other guests have said. It's because it's all the same truth. The truth is the truth. So, you can't really say it that much differently. All of them. I have to say all of them are profound. Some of them you could see in the moment me just being like, oh, like I've never seen it like that. I've never heard anybody put it that way. It's a very valuable resource, being able to do this and tap in with very wise individuals all over the world. That's another miracle. That's a miracle that I never even saw coming 10 years ago. Being able to do this and tap in, get valuable dharma from realized beings from my bedroom. It's like, hallelujah. I could have never imagined. Some people think, most likely, that don't know any better, and I don't care. Oh, there goes Gary. He's just trying to get some attention. He's just trying to garner followers, just trying to make a little bit of money. That's his thing. He's just having fun. But really, what I'm doing is freeing myself. I'm trying to free myself by having a little bit of humility, I think, and admitting I don't know anything. So I'm trying to find some people that know something. Like, hey, do you know what's going on here? Using the tools at my disposal, and I think it's working. I feel like I'm a different person, 100%, of mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever you want to call it, from before I started this whole journey. The value of good conversation with no distractions with another person that maybe knows a little bit more than you, it's actually invaluable. There's no price that you could put on it. It's truly a priceless experience, and you've probably come to find that as well. Being able to do this to me is a miracle. It seems like it's not, right? Because we have this technology in our pockets at all times. We sort of take it for granted, but really just sit down and think about it. Whoever's listening, what we're doing right now. We're recording time and space. This is wild. This is just the fact that it's happening. And then we go on to record Dharma and and being able to take in Dharma from people that are miles and miles away. That's just like, what? If you brought this technology back, say 2,000 years, not even 2,000, we'll go like 50, 60 years, they'd be like, what is this sorcery that you have brought me? So, answering your question, all of them, because all of them are magic. All of them are a miracle to me that I'm able to do this. And not only am I able to have the conversation and be bestowed this information, I like to think that I'm helping some people along the way. And that's my goal with this whole thing. It's like, if I am able to do this and gain this valuable information for my growth, I want to hopefully aid in others along the way. And I think that's my service as it is right now. It's using this magical sorcery at our disposal to hopefully help a few people, even if it's just one person, even if it's just one person out there. I've done my job. It's
Hallelujah, brother. I mean,
hallelujah.
it is. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. It truly, like, the times that we're in, it's miraculous. Anybody listening, use this time for your advantage to become liberated, to see what we're seeing. And the thing is, it's like, all I can do is just put it out there and be a testament. At the end of the day, that's all we're doing, is we're just being a testament to this whole thing. A podcast isn't going to save you. A book isn't going to save you. No one else is going to save you but you. So this, I like to see what you're doing, what I'm doing, is really just a giant reminder that we're putting on recording for everybody. That's it. That's as far as it goes, I think. I mean, there's helpful guidance in there, but at the end of the day, that guidance is just a reminder. Every teaching, I like to say, is a reminder or a remembrance for you to come back to you. If it's not, then it's not really a teaching. It's not teaching you anything valuable, at least. So, yeah, that's it. Just use this time as a great remembrance, listening, that you have everything at your disposal and no one's going to do it for you. Yeah, that's how I try to approach every conversation. It's like, I want somebody to be the best version of themselves, to be, and what is that? To be the best reminder for somebody else, and ultimately me too. Like I said, I do this for myself. It's a win-win. It's helping me and I help others, but it's all for the remembrance to come back home. Hopefully that answered your question.
Oh, absolutely. You know, coming back home, we speak about it with such acceptance. Yet, for many, it takes a lot to digest just that as a concept, let alone be able to merge it into something that will be a daily realization, because there's this starting point. And I tend to find a lot of people use the commandeering of their emotional state as the first distraction. This is noise. This is an expression of the universe. You want to return back to that resonance, that frequency, that vibration that is a basically, when we speak of it within Taoism, we have this incantation that we use. It's called "A power abundant in its giving you will receive," unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transcending all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. Now, that visceral effect that you're experiencing is the knowing. That's your validation. That right there, you hear those words that are embodied with that perfection, the mother, and it registers with your tuning fork. That gives you that realization, the charge, the rippling effect of that charge within your physicality that is represented in an energy, and it is a dead-on accurate knowing of what the truth is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you use these vehicles, whether it's wrapped up into a word, a symbol. These are all things that are integrated deep within the seeker's journey, and that's why they're so powerful as a basically a catalyst for your realization. Is it all comes in that, and it can be audible, inaudible. You will know. And so I find that a lot of people are on this journey, um, remembering, and they get stuck in a certain point, is what we like to call the glimpse, a
Yeah.
taste, a little taste,
Yep.
chasing a spiritual dragon, and it's not repeatable. And that's where I get a lot of people on my doorstep: psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors, Chinese medicine doctors, acupuncture, you name it. They always return to what the most powerful source is, which is energy, frequency, vibration. There's nothing more powerful than that when you come to that realization, knowing that this is what this whole experience is constructed of, and learn to develop something that is repeatable for you so that you can hold that resonance on a daily basis. And I mean, I love the fact that you reference meditation, because it's not really used to its maximum potential for most people. They look at it, they pass by, and it's not for me. I need to move on. Now,
Yeah.
meditation is just, you know, awareness, and that ability to create a point of focus to nothing. It's like right from the scriptures, and I just transcribed the 2024 version with Lao Tzu, and I just published that as a 2024 version of the Tao Te Ching. For a Taoist, it's the magical register. And people are like, what? Where did I get what? Excuse me? Well, every verse is incantations, and
Mm.
every incantation has levels of consciousness that you acquire with a frequency. And when people read the version that I put out, they go, holy moly. Well, it will raise up off the page, swirl around you, and drop right into your heart center, and have you realized. And this is the magic of ancient awareness. And as directly from Lao Tzu, he refers to it as the whispers of the universe showing him the mother, the return to all things. And so your relationship with ancient practices are quite clear. You're seeking, you're sharing, you're embodying, you're absorbing, as we call it within Taoism, is absorbing the riches. You are doing that very thing on a daily basis, my friend. So you mention yoga, you mention meditation. What are some of the other things that you've gathered from insight from your collection of different guests on your podcast that you found really useful to your own development?
Mm. Very good question. You're very wise. I should be asking you questions. I feel I feel a little what's the word I'm looking for? I was gonna say out of place, but not out of place. It's just strange to not be in the host seat.
Well, you know what? I'm going to notion that I'm going to validate what you're saying. Every time I get on a podcast, the podcaster is like, hang on a second, is this your podcast or mine? Because I get into that habit. I start asking questions, and I understand exactly how you feel.
No, it's good though. It's good. I like this. I like this dynamic. Um, so from what I've gained personally and from other people, in order to get that glimpse, you need something that just shakes you up out of that level of thought, that level of thinking, and brings you to the next level because of necessity. It's almost like there's got to be another way to see this. There has to be a different way to live life, and it's different for everyone. Sometimes it comes through traumatic events. Sometimes it comes through near-death experiences, but a lot of times it also comes from using psychedelics. I'm a huge advocate of the safe use, the mature use of psychedelic. I was gonna say drugs. I don't like to say drugs, but essentially it is a drug. Specifically, magic mushrooms, LSD, DMT, ayahuasca, mescaline, things of that nature. They seem to do that if used correctly. If not at like a rave or a party scene, I'm not downing that, but if used in a sort of ritualistic ceremony, uh, kind of like the what is that called? The Mysteries of Eleusis, where they would come together and do it almost as like a religious practice,
Mm.
sort of like an incantation in itself around the chemical.
Mm-hmm.
In that way, if you use it in that way, I feel as though, not always, but there's a great chance where it will shake one up to be able to get that taste and that glimpse. So I would have to say one of the things that I can't help but mention is the use of psychedelics. Um, Man, a lot of people don't use them in the right way. Not judging, I'm just stating a fact from my discernment. It's not used in the correct way, but if one does approach them with reverence and respect, it may yield, it may be another miracle, that's for sure. And it will be a definite glimpse into this nature of higher states of awareness in a very short amount of time. So that's what I would have to say. Specifically, magic mushrooms, though. Magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms will lead the way in that regard.
That seems to be a very well valued sort of consensus that I'm getting across many different guests that I've had on my podcast where
Mm-hmm.
have used that. I find that you need to create the right appropriate preparation
Mm-hmm.
for this experience so that once you open the gateway for it to remain open, there's a processes. And I find that most people get a taste and then they're forever seeking because it's transitory,
Yeah.
very limited, and that's where I always notion and give people a preparation sort of processes so that if you are taking that path, which is absolutely perfection, you must prepare yourself so that you're not just putting your foot in the door and then it's closing on you,
Mm-hmm.
which happens to a lot of people. And then once people have had that gateway drug, but I will show them how to repeat it, but
Yeah.
not just have a DMT experience that's a couple of minutes, an hour or two. You can have one for days
Mm-hmm.
with the right cultivation. That's why these ancient practices are so powerful. Is you want to be able to develop that. Like right now we're having a conversation. I'm moving through the universe, sampling all the properties and the energies of the sun, the moon, the earth, constellations. And I got my eyes open. Now, this would be a very, what people consider a very advanced out of body astral projection. Sure, whatever you want to define it as. Within Nigong, it's a multidimensional realization. It gives you a new definition of what multitasking is. And that is a part of the development that the seeker acquires through their cultivation. And it's like, why not? Why not experience this 24/7?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, that's terrible. What are the side effects? Lengthening my telomeres so that they bring you back 20 years from the biological state that I've got on paper due to my seeking and my cultivation. Oh no, that's terrible. I don't want to do that. Of course you do. And so I find that this is always a great way, this revival of this psychonaut sort of experience is really powerful if the seeker is creating an environment where they can keep the door open. I think it's
Yep.
important. Or start there and find someone that can teach you how to cultivate and then return back to that. And that's one of the most powerful parts of internal alchemy for Taoism is that very access point. the three treasures, pineal, pituitary, and thalamus, are the jewels that we use to create the alchemical fun factory that then is realized, right? It's like, whoa, now you're using the culture medium, the blood, to literally commandeer the 50 trillion cells of your physical body and start harnessing that 0.07 millivolts of electricity potential in every single cell. Now, when you start to master that and you merge that together, whoo, you know, you're going to have a fun till daddy take a T-bird away.
Yeah.
Which is really, I mean, this is part of the exciting part. It's like, oh no, I'm expanding myself. I'm holding a resonance that goes beyond what people consider this mundane 3D reality. And you're able to, with that, have a rippling effect with your environment, returning everything around you to this perfection manifest. So within that, what you're subject to is a duality, because people that are not given that heads up, they're having this, they're like, okay, Gary's in the room. There's two things that are happening to me. I love him or I hate him. Where am I getting this from? Because the resonance is so high that you're admitting this, and it's having a rippling effect within the space that you're in. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I feel that. I've never actually thought about that, but it hit me now. I feel like people either love me or hate me. They're either like, I'm everyone's best friend or their worst enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because of your resonance, my friend. And
Makes sense.
And it's not a negative or a positive thing. It just is. Yet you're observing it as this dualistic perception to everyone around you, that they are digesting it that way. So with that resonance, it's having a rippling effect on a subatomic particle level within their very essence, and it merges and brings up either an expansive moment of awareness, or for someone who's just struggling with the mundane idea that their emotions control them, it's him. He's making me angry.
Yeah.
I've just got a disdain for, I don't know, it's a beard. It must be.
It must
He's
be.
way too happy and too positive. You know, this whole positive thing. Why do you have to be positive? Well, you can't be negative, I guess. I mean, let me see all the redeeming value of this negative aspect. Not much from an alchemical level. When you look at the actual chemistry and what it does to the physical flesh and blood that you see before you, you have all these biochemical responses that are literally degrading or downgrading this essence, this physicality from that chemistry. And that's sort of like part of stepping away from the duality, where that doesn't, you know, you are not of this human flesh and blood. It's longer even on the menu, and it's a part of that cultivational practice. Once you start developing that, it's like, yes, your life is like an episode of the path of Gandhi and a spattering of Harry Potter's greatest hits. That's exactly what it should be. It should be exciting. It should be a visceral experience, and you can stay in this reverence, and you can stay there, and you can be it. All things.
Yeah.
And so you can sample the emotion, you can emanate the virtue, and you can just be this present moment. And that all just comes from a developed state that comes from accepting you know nothing.
Yep. That's it. True acceptance of knowing nothing. That is the way. Yeah. It seems like, what? That doesn't make any sense. What's the incentive in that? Why would I want to accept that I know nothing? Well, this is the truth. We know nothing. Nobody knows anything. If you think you know something, you're just playing yourself. We know nothing. Seriously, we know nothing. And how does that not seem negative? Because it might seem negative to someone that doesn't know any better, but that's actually the good news, that we all know nothing. It's freedom in that. You know, there's so much liberation. Like, oh, I know nothing. Weight off my shoulders. And then you can play. You can play this game as it unfolds. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It really is. It's because we've been conditioned into like, oh, you got to be this, you gotta be this person, you gotta do this, you have to know this, especially with school. That's what school does. You have to know this, you have to pass this test. When you see past that, the conditioning, our lifelong conditioning, it's so beautiful. I don't know how else to explain it, man. It's so beautiful to be able to live like that. And like I said, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I get stuck, I get lost in the sauce, I like to say. But once you get that glimpse, you can't unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, man. You can always come back to it. All it takes is to just come back into quiet time and meditate and realize what's really going on here, you could say. That's why I've said it enough this conversation. Meditation is so huge to be able to see that and feel that truly we know nothing. We know nothing at all. And that, my friend, is the good news. Be still and know. It's that simple. But yeah, psychedelics, getting back to that, they allow one to show you the potential of that, because it's really hard, I feel as though, to break out of the conditioning. It seems so difficult, even though it's like the truth is right here, hidden in plain sight. It's the current moment. It's a one breath away. For some reason, we just live in this very rigid, very thick way of seeing ourselves. Like it's just very it's so hard, man. I think because it is hidden in plain sight. I think because this truth of knowing nothing, of ultimate awareness, infinity, eternity, whatever you want to call it, man. I think it's because it's the here and now. It's so simple, we gloss over it. It's so easy to look over what we truly are. And that's the irony of it, is it's so easy that we can't the thinking mind says, oh, it can't be. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way that I am God. Essentially, there's no way that I could. No, look. This is who I am. I'm Gary. I'm blah blah blah. I do this for a living. I got this much money, but no, don't you see? There's no way. The mind will always try to find an excuse that you are not. That you are not the ultimate. You are not the supreme. There's always something that the mind will try to trick you with. But I guess the work that you described so eloquently, and the work through meditation, is to be able to see the trickery of the mind and see it all just as an illusion, essentially. And that's it, is to be able to see it, like take a step back from that seat and see it just as another coming and going. Like, oh, it's just, I am not the thoughts. You've all heard that before. You're not your thoughts. That's 101, right? But it's the truth. It's that simple, to just sit back and see it for what it is. Like, oh, it's like a movie, just a passing scene. And from that vantage point, man, yeah, the scene changes. I think we already said this. It becomes quantum. You can change the movie. You become the main character. You become player one in the video game. And it just becomes miraculous. There's no other word for it. Life becomes miraculous, becomes sort of dreamlike. Or maybe you could say we were living in a dream, and we still are in a way. The show goes on, but it becomes a lucid dream. You get to edit the dream, you could say. And that, priceless. Priceless. And we're doing it right now as we speak. We are editing the dream. As we go, we are creating this thing, and it's wonderful to be able to do, man. To know that this is possible, to have this sort of empowerment. I think this whole path also alludes to what I've come to learn from the people that I spoke to, a sense of true power, but not power in the classical way that our world leads us to believe what power is, like manipulation over others, or yeah, I guess that's kind of what power is, right? To be able to manipulate your influence over others. We could say that's a simple way to describe power. It's not that. It's not really that. It's like self confidence, essentially, to be able to create with no boundaries and also no stipulations of how the creation unfolds, you know? To be able to create without any sort of idea of fruits of labor. Like, I'm not doing it for this. I'm just doing it for the doing. There's really nobody doing it. That's why. It's just like you get lost in the act of creation. That is special, man. That's godlike. You know, we become godlike creators in that way. You don't even have to say God. You become one with the Tao, you know? You become synced up to the river of life and you float downstream in that river. And man, I've said it enough. It's a miracle to be able to do that. That's all I got to say. Let me ask you this one. Can I ask you something?
Yeah,
Do,
yeah,
do
go
you
ahead.
fe- do you feel like once you get on this wavelength and you have this sort of understanding, realization within yourself that yes, we create in whatever way that our dharma yields, but me and you have a particular form of creation, at least what people see online. We create to show other people their own empowerment, right? We want to spread the good news. We want to spread the gospel, you could say. Do you feel that that is sort of, I don't know, lack of a better word, obligatory, as in you have to kind of talk about this? I think you actually spoke about this before we started recording. You were on this wavelength for 30 or so years. And within the last year, you said, I gotta use the tools at our disposal to get the word out. What was it in you that said, I gotta do this? You know, why? Was it something greater than like, I'm trying to cultivate a following, I'm trying to make a living? Was there like some part of your soul, your being, something
What,
that
that
was what?
changed gears? That changed gears? Or from the beginning?
Yeah, what changed? What made you change gears to want to come on? Well, I guess you could say both, yeah, because you've been doing this for 30 years. So both, yeah. What made you 30 years ago say, I got to give back? And then also, what made you want to come online? I feel like it's still the same resonance. It's still the same will that those decisions stem from. So where does this will come from to want to give back a little bit per se and spread the good news?
Well, it starts with, when I was a young boy, it started with a validation of my self worth due to being subject to, bullying to an extreme that, I was being mentally, emotionally, and physically violated on a daily basis due to my will, and it would not be broken. And so there was a seed of this sort of like ironclad knowing of who I am. And that came in the form of this expression of high intellect and a verbal visceration of all things around me. So from a young boy, I was able to articulate things that most children wouldn't even understand 10 years my senior, due to just my own awareness of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that came from, of course, when you, in retrospect, you realize, oh, this is the moment when I had my direct communication with Lao Tzu that revealed all things leading up to this point. And so it's like, okay, if you believe in incarnation, reincarnation, then you start to have a clear message of what it is that's going on in your experience. And so that led me to this bullying. Subject to bullying led me to a physical desire to build physicality, which ended up in a pursuit of bodybuilding and powerlifting for the better part of my teenage years. And with that, it led into, okay, now I've achieved this sort of feats of strength, understanding of nutrition. These are all just sort of like images and messages in my mind of this echoing of go here, do this, do that, and a voice which I would consider a dialogue that was being had with
Mm-hmm.
my knowing. And then of course it transmuted into a very clear audience dialogue with all my teachers today. But at that point, it was just do this, do that, do this. And because I had discovered that I knew who I was from a very young age, and my will, as it would perceive, could not be broken no matter how much I was violated, because a lot of the kids would have their moments where they go home to their parents drinking and boozing up and beating them, and they come back into school and they go, oh, that weird kid, I've got to beat the life out of him because I need to transmute my own rage and anger for what I'm experiencing. Of course, you look at this in retrospect. At the time, it was just my ability to not back down, like ironclad, solid. You could, not to get graphic, but I'd have anywhere from 10 kids stomping on me at one time, doing
Wow.
horrible things that you wouldn't even want to try and create in your mind due to the fact that I was weird. That super weird kid that's super smart, that doesn't do anything, that knows everything, because that was that was literally a gnosis that I had as a child. I was able to absorb all information at will without even picking up a book. I would acquire it very quickly, and all of a sudden I was the top of the learning curve within any sort of environment. And that presented problems for me. That resonance that we speak of, that we're talking about, I was holding that at a very young age. That chill you got right now, that is it. That is when you know. And so that sort of blossomed into attempting to, okay, I've got my knowing. Now I need to create some sort of persona that would be able to now protect myself, per se. So, yeah, as a young boy, I didn't have it all sort of very clear to me in the messaging. I was listening, but I was doing other things. So I created this physical representation to basically, as you would say, honor what it is that's driving me to be so resistant to this permeation of my what people would perceive as my free will. And it ended in, bodybuilding, lifting crazy weights, 500, 700-pound deadlifts and squats and all that kind of stuff. And as my teenage years slowly dwindled down to entering into my 20s, this voice said, it's now more. Picking up and crushing things. You need to go further. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Back in those days, it was Hare Krishnas and, the idea of meditation. It was a thing. It was a yogic path that most people had no idea what that meant. And so I went looking for an answer. And they said, I want you to try meditation. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, what does that really mean to me? I mean, I crush things. I'm very articulate. I'm very sharp. I'm able to absorb the present moment and take in the information. I don't understand this. It's because the presentation of it was stillness, being quiet. And I'm like, I didn't attribute the ability to focus and put my attention intention to moving an excessive amount of weight as being the same thing. Yet it was like everything, this present moment is now, right?
Yeah.
And so I was using it for years. And so when I went to meditation, I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm this overgrown gorilla, over 300 pounds at that point in my early 20s. And I was like, muscular, overgrown. And I ended up in this youth center with this little grandmaster, because it wasn't like the internet now where you can find a million meditating teachers and all this kind of stuff. It was a foreign thing, I mean, the Beatles brought in this information back in the sort of started bringing it to the Western world, and Yogananda and all these other people were bringing seeds of this sort of Eastern philosophy and consciousness back in the 60s and 70s, but it wasn't really a thing. You couldn't just go, hey, I need to go to my Pilates class and get a meditation in and a guided meditation, all this kind of stuff. So I found this grand master, this little 50-pound wet behind the ears little Asian woman, and she's doing these free meditation classes in a rec room in some ghetto, literally a ghetto, like I was taking my life into my own hands. On the outside, people are screaming, dogs barking, cars crashing, ambulances. And I'm in this room attempting to perform a lotus position, which was not going to happen. My back was aching. I'm hunched over. It was a no-go for me. And I'm thinking in my mind, the word is be quiet, be still, still the mind. Now, I assumed I couldn't do that, but I was doing it all this time. And so I'm sitting there and I'm hearing all this stuff and I'm looking around the room. There's a half a dozen misfits that are just looking for a freebie like me, whatever, what's the worst thing that could happen? Nothing. I mean, what is this really, what is waiting for me on the other side of this experience?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know what have I got to lose? And I'm thinking, oh yeah, this person's probably just writing off some nonprofit. It's a hack. I'm just a side effect of that, and the other beggars that are there. What are we going to do? So it's just crazy, my friend. Just the chill you get right now. It's like she was like, now I want you to listen to my voice, and I'm like, okay. Now at that point, I had no idea I could literally be the present moment at will, and I attributed it that wasn't really what I was doing, but I was doing it the whole time. And so I'm hearing the noise, there's all this craziness. And then she goes, listen to my voice and everything will fall away. And just as she said it, I was like, that's nonsense. That you can't do that. And literally after that, everything was silent. And I heard her, what I was doing was looking at her going, I literally had the biggest download of epiphany going, holy shit. This is unbelievable. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. Yet I was mastering this state of awareness for many years through my childhood, going through all these different levels of unraveling consciousness, mental, emotional healing. And it was complete silence. It had all gone away, everything. And I was just flabbergasted. I was just, what to do with this? I'm just like, this is whatever it is. Screw this bodybuilding stuff. I am now into whatever the secret sauce is. I want it. This was my glimpse, my friend. I want it more than anything. Now, fast forwarding 30 years, that was like my dragon, spirit dragon chasing, but it literally unraveled into channeling Lao Tzu a week later, being guided by a teacher that was giving me instant access, who had spent 60 years teaching people how to channel. And I got it first go, and he was like, and this is where you know who you are, right? And like everyone in the class was literally taking out their little sticks with marshmallows on the end of them, and they were burning them because I was admitting so much frequency. And I do it still to this day whenever I channel him. I'm always in concert with him, but let's just say if I'm doing a direct channel and it's about just his presence and resonating 100%, permeating through, and I'm the catalyst and conduit, it's like you can sit there and like literally get high from the energy that's being transmitted from my physical body through this digital offering. And so, that following week after that, then I witnessed the physical healing, the physical flesh from gangrenous to pink in color in 40 minutes. And it just keeps going. I mean, I got 1,000 of these stories. I'm pretty sure you at some point want to hear them. But this is kind of like, that was my realization. And then, of course, on my path, being ordained into lineages of Taoism, one is 66 generation holder, the other one 126 generation holder. And, those rituals are so powerful, they're so ancient. And then I expand on those because a lot of them are circumvented by the realm of man. So even things I get from my monastic path within the monasteries, the deeper stuff that is secret source within the rituals are still being mitigated and manipulated by the realm of man. So I always go straight to any practices, any ritual, go straight to the source. My teachers, the three pure ones, who are the keepers of the cosmos. And if you look at Taoism, that's the highest resonant point before the mother. They are just facets of the mother, but they are the evolution, the conception and creation of the cosmos as we know it. And so you become very clear where you're getting the information from. And the mastery is the development of these skills so that then you can share with others. I mean, I get so much. I got to admit, I'm very selfish. I get a lot of there's a wholeness that is so powerful witnessing someone remembering who they are. It's like there's nothing like it, man. There's nothing like it. And that epiphany, that realization is a driving force. Now, the side effect of the things that I teach people are it gets your attention. You know, if I'm doing something that's more just energy based, like a qigong sort of practices where I envelop my forearm in anesthesia and I run a skewer through it, pull it out, you don't see an entry or exit point. You go, what the wow, whoa, what is that? That's enough to draw your attention. Now, some people need this materialistic viewpoint to enter into something greater. And so, whatever it is, whether it's our conversation, whether it's something a little bit more on the lower rut of, you know, a humanistic expression, I will do whatever's necessary to have you remember who you are. And that comes in all forms. And that's where some people are like, well, why would you want to do this stuff in the internal alchemy? Because sometimes that's entry level. You know, I had no idea I had an obsession with superheroes my whole life. And starting with the bodybuilding was being sort of like lied to by Arnold Schwarzenegger about the real seed of how he created his physical expression. Yet I created that from here, which is really here. But I just used literally an education of a bodybuilder at the age of 10 years old to mold my physical body into an ape. And all it came down to was the belief systems. And that's what I keep reminding people of. What you believe is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Your truth. Now, does that kind of answer your question? I'm not sure whether you wanted to ask. Maybe you shouldn't have asked that. I don't know. I went on
Oh,
a
it's good.
tangent.
You definitely answered it, man. Yeah, do you feel like there's a natural servitude that comes about wanting to, you
Oh,
know, all this stuff, you have this wisdom, you've garnered this, you seem to work with it your whole life?
it's a selflessness.
Yeah.
So whether I'm in a situation where I'm teaching someone, or I have a healing class where I have 60, 100 people in it, or I have a communion of 1,000 people that want to get healed, it's the selflessness, and you cannot conjure that up.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on the trend of having a dialogue with yourself, going, "I'm a good person," you need to stop, because it doesn't. It's the effortless action that we speak of, which is the selflessness
Yeah.
that comes with that
Yeah, I agree.
attunement that returns people back. So the greater awareness within this 3D reality is the selflessness to contribute to the betterment of humanity.
Yeah.
That's part of this expression. And that's why we're experiencing it as the simulation that we are here right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so selflessness is, you know, I get a lot of people that are like, I'm in a position, I have this ability to help my housekeeper. Her mother's dying in Mexico, and you know, I want to give her all this money, and I'm like, what exactly? What are you asking me? Well, should I do it? No. What do you mean? Because you're thinking about how you can manipulate this poor person. And what are you going to get out of it if you gave them this money to help them go and see their dying mother? What are you getting out of it? No, I'm not. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to ask me.
Mm-hmm.
The selfless act happens all the time. It's like you are just now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so whether it comes in the form of handing a homeless person $20, or helping someone across the street, or even asking someone, how are you today? That's what we're speaking of.
Mm-hmm.
And that acknowledgement within this human construct is so far and few between. And the last 4 years of complete abuse has trained people to remove themselves from themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
Yeah.
that oppression, depression, possession is really the exercise that was generated over the last 4 years, was to keep you as separate as possible
Mm-hmm.
from a knowing, returning to who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because why is it natural? This is how I like to justify it or explain it. Why is that so natural and effortless? It's because with that understanding of the self with a capital S is also an understanding of the self and others that seem like different selves. That separation is just an illusion. So naturally, one just has to help thyself, you know? Like that service, it just becomes self evident. Like there's nothing else to do than become the servant. It's just like when you see someone else suffering, it's you suffering. When you cause someone else to suffer, you're causing yourself to suffer. And there's no other way to see it, man. That's another part. You see it within yourself, your local body, but you also are able to see it in others as well. And that's what it comes down to. We can talk about realization and being on this wavelength all you want, but it really just comes down to also loving other people, a more compassionate approach to life. If not, then what are we all doing this for? If not to create a better world, right? And what are we doing this for? To just look cool on the internet, gain some money, get some followers? Some people are doing it for that, I'm not gonna lie, with the under the guise of spirituality. But true spirituality is coming to this understanding within your own life and then also translating that, hopefully, into others. And I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I think that just comes, I think that like, how can it not come to somebody to become the servant with enough understanding of who and what you are and who and what other people are that aren't really other people? Wink, wink. How can that not come about? You know, like your monk friend. I'm not judging, man. I'm totally not judging him. We all got our own path and our own journey. But how can these people with enough understanding and claim self-realization not want to give back? They just like keep it to themselves. Well, don't you realize what your self is not just your body? You know, to me, that's just a reflection of how much understanding you truly have. Like I see people with true understanding, like certain levels, there's probably levels to it, but a true understanding, certain jhanas. When you reach a certain jhana limit, you have to like, you can't, don't you have to give back? I don't know. Maybe that's just me and a sort of self-righteous attitude I have about wanting to hopefully help the world. But I can't help but feel that. And I think it's true for you as well. That like how can it would cause me, and this is how I rationalize it, it would cause me more suffering to not talk about this, to not have a podcast, to not help guide others along the way. If I was just quiet, kept it to myself, there would be something inside, which actually was, this is how this whole thing started. Like I had this understanding with myself. I'm like, I got to give back. But if I stayed silent within these last 4 or so years, it would be this like, it would be this burning, almost like a pain inside. And there still is. You could even say there is a pain inside, and that's why I do it. But it would be even more so if I didn't at least try. If I didn't at least try to give back this understanding, this sense of peace, this fulfillment that I have touched upon, there would just be, it would cause me more suffering. So I don't understand others. And I'm trying not to sound like arrogant or judgmental, but I don't understand when others don't want to give back. To me, that's just a reflection of like, then you really don't understand. You don't really get it. And I hope that doesn't come off as too arrogant or judgmental. Like I said, do you understand though?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's on the seeker's journey or lack of journey
Mhm.
that they're caught in this simulation,
Yeah.
and they're identifying as the what's looking back at them in the mirror. And this is part of a bigger, in my opinion, I'll use this word even though it's sort of like a three-letter organization derivative, a psyop that has been on an ongoing program that's over the timeline of humanity, more often than not, in the last couple of hundred years, has been very, very, very strong pushing in this narrative to separate
Yeah.
all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you are me and I am you, what is there to be fearful of? What is there to be afraid of? And this is sort of like the consensus of healers. And this is where I get back to getting a developmental practice. Now, within Taoism, we identify the constitution, the Jing. When you're born into this world, I refer to it as a battery. You will have your hereditary disposition, your genetic expression as a signature of who you are right now. And you start off with a certain amount of energy that you brought into this realm. And it's normally, on average, about 80 out of 100%. Through Taoist practices, we teach you to cultivate 100% of that battery. From 100%, you go to 1,000, from 1,000 to 9,000, and you identify that this physicality, you do not use that to tap into the mother. The mother is the present moment. And this is where the same side effect repeats itself. I'm a healer, I'm a light worker, I'm an attorney, I'm an accountant, I'm this. I'm exhausted, I've had a long day, I'm dealing with people, because they've bought into the narrative that they're separated. And they use their own source, their life force, to transmute that. And so that distraction is on a much bigger, a much bigger scale, and understanding that you have zero need for protection, but you have to step past this dualistic programming, and you need to be able to know who you are and get to that return and remember through a seeking, a practices, an awareness, a conversation. It's all happening now, and there are no coincidences. So if someone's listening to this conversation, it's for them to level up. It's for them to remember, and it will be a reflection of that. And, it's also okay that people don't level up. Not everyone will be awakened to the truth of who they are in this incarnation. And that's okay too. That, it's about the collective. You and I have a very clear path of understanding that and bringing people to return. And the more and more we unite, the more and more, the bigger the amplitude of that is. And the ultimate goal for my teachers is to awaken millions of people and continue to do that on a daily basis. And with that, it's quite clear, it's self-evident that I had a neurologist on about a week or two ago, and he was talking about, maybe 20 years ago, 1% of the population was meditating. Now the data that he files through, I'm not, validating. It's just his spoken word, and I don't really care. I know it to be true that, on the planet right now, over 20% of the population is meditating. Now that, my friend, is the wake up, the power of what it is. We're all contributing to this collective. Now, deciphering what that means, you and I have a much clearer understanding of the nature of reality and the selflessness that comes with our journey. Yet so many people are still in that materialistic, nihilist sort of perception.
Yeah.
And it's popular. It's like human history. Identify what it is: spirituality, atheism, and religion, which is getting a beating because, it's like, they're cult leaders that want to destroy you. You should start with something. I always have a reservation when someone confesses that they have no belief system. Believe in yourself. Believe in something. I don't care what it is.
Yeah. We all believe in something.
Right.
There's no such thing. Even no belief is a belief.
Yeah. So, when people start to really, settle into that identification, it's a great way to start a conversation that can become really powerful for all the collective. Yet, so many people on that train right now. And
Yeah.
an atheist sort of train. I'm starting to see more of this stylistic sort of viewpoint where they just there's an energy that is manipulating the very narrative that they just want people to just be void of anything. You don't have to just take your medicine, the alcohol, the weed,
Mm-hmm.
the drugs, the nonstop media,
Mm-hmm.
the digital onslaught of manipulating and getting you deep within the unconscious and programming you the way that they want you to. It's kind of like a much bigger narrative.
Yeah.
It's quite self-evident if you even take a glimpse.
Yeah.
And so, the more people like yourself and myself have the conversation and give people the opportunity to go, whoa, what they're talking on is I'm feeling it through my whole body. I don't know what it is, but it makes sense to me.
Yep. Yep.
And that's the seed, that starting point. That's what we do. That's how we, create the return.
Amen to that. That's a good note because when I first started to listen to Dharma by sages of the past and sages now, in literal conversations that I have, when I first started to hear the words of wisdom, something resonated. There was something in me that was like, this is unlike anything I've ever heard before in my life. They're using the English language, but yet it's how it's being said. There's some kind of frequency, some kind of resonance behind the words that I've never really felt before. That is, I think, hopefully, what we're doing. Hopefully, we're carrying the torch of Dharma. You know, I just have followed that that resonance that shines through whatever medium it comes forth. It might be a book, might be a talk, might be I don't know, might even be seen in some kind of movie that isn't specifically related to Dharma also. But there's something, the truth shines through, you could say. But specifically when you hear somebody talking about this stuff, wise words of sages, it's like, wow, this is different. This is definitely different. It's not classical philosophy. There's something behind the symbols of the words that's leading me to me. And yeah, that's priceless, man. That's priceless. It's almost like a code, right? Like Dharma is like a code that you have to decipher. And if you can look at it in the right way with a keen eye, you get it. You get the message of the code. You get the cipher. It just you have to be open enough to it. That's the thing. I think it will work either way. To someone that doesn't have their door open, the words will just go whoop, right over their head, one ear out the other. It doesn't make any sense. But I think if you have that inkling of curiosity within, the Dharma will act as a key to unlock the door. And then just go with that. You walk through yourself. So, moral of the story is guidance is valuable. I think I already said this. Having sages of the past, I revere them greatly. But still, it always comes back to you. It always comes back to you being open and curious and vulnerable enough to be able to accept the Dharma and decipher the code that is for you. And then, in a way, on that servitude note, it seems like you start to morph into the Dharma. You become one with the Dharma, one with the way. You become the Word, as Jesus said. I am the Word. He said, I'll always be with you. I'm the Word. That makes sense, doesn't it? You start to become like this message and a transmitter of this message effortlessly. And not even just literally in the message, in the words that we say now. Like the word starts to shine through in the actions. And that's kind of like a weird, it's a weird way to visualize it, but like the message of the symbols of the word starts to shine through, if that makes any sense. Like the Dharma is more than just the language. The Dharma is the wavelength that's transmitted through language. Hopefully that made sense. And yeah, you start to become that. You start to morph into that, but it's reflected only through, I feel, a truly realized being. There's plenty of people that parrot it online, and I can see they're just missing that transmission. Like they're just like they didn't. You got to consult the sages, man. You got to consult the people that have done it before you. If you're trying to transmit this stuff and interpret this stuff for others, and you don't consult the people that have gotten the initiation, you could say, or transmission from people of the past, that truth that shines through that I spoke of, that resonance, to me, this is personally speaking, it doesn't hit. I can tell when somebody really is real, really is about it. I can tell when somebody has got it, and I can tell when somebody doesn't got it. And it's how they use their words. It's just like how it comes through. I don't know how else to say it. Real recognize real. That's a saying that the young people say. Real recognize real. And yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's like dharma, wisdom, you could say. It's transmission. It's a transmission that in times past was almost like a sort of secret society thing. Like you had to have a master, you had to have the guru disciple relationship. Now dharma's out in the open. It's all over the internet, so it's kind of it can get a little tricky where people can they can kind of like they can kind of foil the true meaning of the dharma and the true specialness of that relationship or where it really came from, and they try to act like a truly initiated person, and it doesn't really work. It doesn't work, man. You have to revere the sages. You have to revere the gurus of the past. If not, it's kind of pseudo spirituality. I feel like it's like you're missing the link. I see it as a link. It's a chain link of wisdom, of knowledge that has been passed through from, I don't know, the beginning of time. I don't know when language first started. And if you beget the link of the people that did it before you, it's just not gonna resonate. I feel it's not gonna resonate. You might get followers, you might get subscribers on YouTube. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're actually with the transmission. So yeah, I don't know where you want to go from that. But
Well, now,
yeah.
yeah, no, you brought up this great point, this somatic syntax of the merging of all these things that you go, hang on, words, what are they? How is that so relevant to me? It's sort of like this embodied, imprinted energy, the signature that evokes within you something that reveals itself instantaneously because it's deep within the core of who you are. That's why people gravitate to words, symbols, numbers, letters. Now we could use the lens of more contemporary language like quantum or epigenetics to give you a deeper understanding of what that means. But in essence, all these things are embedded deep within your DNA, and that's why you resonate to them.
Yeah.
Now,
Like an activation.
From an ancient perspective, this is pure source. This is perfection. That is who you really are, and so you're just returning. When you hear this, it returns back to its original state. That's why it's so powerful to you. That's why that somatic experience is self-evident. And so, Lao Tzu is a great facet of that. For me, I find him quite cheeky. Sometimes it's like people were clamoring for the answers to 2024 decimation, fire and brimstone, death coming out of the sky, the financials, and all that kind of stuff at the beginning of the year. And his response was quite simple. Imagine you're like a grain of sand, asking the beach, what are we doing today? Fall back into the beach and be realized. And I was just like, you can't make this stuff up. You can't.
Yeah.
You cannot make this up. And like, this is his insight.
You can't make it up.
You can't. And like the charge you get right now, it's like, it's the realization. You don't have to go, oh, maybe this guy's kind of full of crap. No, my body's telling me everything I need to know.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. It's happening right now. And so this is part of the seeker's journey, is sort of gathering a path that is repeatable, that is self-evident, and that is their knowing. Not my truth, not Gary's truth, not John Smith down the street. Your truth. I always remember, your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And people are like, whoa, that's very dangerous. I'm like, what are you talking about? Empowering someone to actually decide, discern, and affirm what is their truth. Yeah, that's kind of like the whole purpose, is when you start to resonate, it all becomes this universal, truth. Now, on a face value, you might start out with, I like to call a low level. Within Taoism, love is sort of like the first subjective stepping stone to your realization. People are like, well, excuse me, love is it. That's the answer, until otherwise noted. Because at face value, as you're acquiring this knowing, love to you could be razor blades and bunny rabbits, to someone else's unicorns and rainbows. Until you resonate high enough to be able to express that universal, unconditional love, it will be subject to your personality, your life experiences, the sum of who you believe you are. And so as you resonate higher, that becomes dissolved and you fall back into it. You go from love, and then we go to gratitude. Gratitude seems to be a great universal way to access someone's attention. If you give someone $5 or give them a compliment, they can resonate there instantaneously, without direction, without having to be focused on, I have to admit this highest level of love. It's now. And it's something that is an unconscious process that becomes conscious. And then, of course, the ultimate is to accept and allow all things as this present moment. And so love is a beautiful expression of an entry level for someone to perceive their reality, yet it's not the ultimate fabric of perfection, because everything is everything and nothing at the same time. And so that's a journey of the seeker. And, the talking heads that you speak of, there seems to be quite a few of them in this space, this digital expression. And, you get that, oh my goodness, this person has absolutely no idea what they're speaking of.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had that as you, through your own admission, you're like, some conversations I've just not wanted to publish because they're not having any resonance or depth of value.
Unfortunately. And I mean that with the utmost respect. I do. But like sometimes I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I just like, there's that feeling, there's that, I'm just like not feeling it, and I can't, there's something in me. I'm like, this doesn't serve anyone. If it doesn't serve me in the moment, it's definitely not going to serve anyone in the future.
Because you are me, I am you.
That's it. So yeah, real recognize real. It's very instantaneous too. Like there's something that just like, it's like just like that. There's something like I don't have to figure it out. There's no computation in my head. I'm like, it's just no. Like I just know if somebody's real, and for the most part, there's 98% of people that I speak to are well intentioned, and they know they have a sort of well endowed understanding within themselves. But sometimes it just don't work, man. Unfortunately, some people got it, some people don't. Not judging, but it seems to be levels to this thing. Like there seems to be levels of understanding, and as they spoke about in Buddhism, there's jhanas, and there seems to be like that. There's certain parts of the path, and I'm not eloquent enough, or I don't know enough personally of those models to be able to articulate them myself, but it seems pretty apparent from my personal experience and endeavors that there's levels to this whole thing for some reason, even though it's just like, it may seem like an overcomplication to explain it like that, but there is levels. Didn't you describe there's like 5 levels within us of understanding, right? Yeah. So I don't know if you want to follow that model, follow the jhanas, follow the yogic model, but there are to me, it seems like levels of understanding. And when you do reach a certain level, there seems to be um, a way that you can convey from that level of understanding as well. And I don't, I don't understand enough about the levels of understanding to be able to articulate it, like I said. But all I know is that there seems to be, from my personal experience, um, like a hierarchy in a way of understanding our being. So yeah, that's all I gotta say to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the human condition that is the starting point, and as you become more aware, you are me, I am you, and you know nothing, and you know everything at the same time, that becomes self-evident. And so, really, even our conversation we're having about consciousness in of itself is not even the highest expression of the now,
It
because
can't ever be. That's why
no,
sometimes I'm like, huh, what more do I have to say? How many more podcasts do I have to do? There's days where I'm like, maybe I should just stop. What am I really doing? But then I always find a new person that I resonate with, and I go with that. There's always something. There's always somebody new, which is crazy. There's always, this might be going off on a little bit different tangent here, but there's always like something new that I find, and a new person that I resonate with, a different kind of spirit, a different kind of soul that the universe or the algorithm sends my way. And I'm like, okay, well, I kind of have to speak to them. That's that feeling like I kind of want to tap in with them. Um, I don't know what the point of that was, but there's days where I'm like, what more can I say? But yet I keep speaking, literally right now. We cannot speak on this capital T truth ever. There's no words that will ever do it justice. There's many, many different ways to label it. There's many different narratives. The truth is one, and the wise call it by many names. I'm pretty sure I've already said. But yet I keep doing it. Like, why do you think we do this? I mean, I know we said it might be to help and be of service, but is this just like a game we're playing? Is this just like for fun in a way, and we're just sharing our fun with the world? Like, why do we come on here with these quandaries and try to figure it out per se with words when we both know and we both can say it right now on record that there's no way that I could use the English language to be able to say the truth per se. So why would you say we even do it in the first place?
so it's like a macro of a micro, right? So when you really understand, I think it's a hermetic sort of throwaway, as above, so below. This is this mirroring effect that takes place within a duality. Your whole humanistic existence is nothing more than an expression of the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we're myopic and turning it into it's all about me. And so, on a much deeper level, there must be an answer to our existence.
Mm.
Yet the now has no definition and is all and nothing at the same time. Yet the human being an expression of a resonance, has been given this deeper need to inquire, which is more a lower evidence-based sort of expression of what some people would call as ego.
Yeah.
When we get
Yeah.
past that, there's no question, there's nothing. It's just now. And so you embody the resonance of humanity, because you're tapping into empathy, you're tapping into um, love, you're tapping into acceptance. Yet, truly, the present moment, none of that exists. Yet, it's needed for you to understand your purpose. Or the bigger question is or not.
Or not, exactly.
You look at an ant that you step on. Hey, oh my goodness, their whole existence has been eradicated from the face of the earth in one brief moment. Yet, as we are having our conversation right now, we could very well be that ant on a much bigger layer. And when you tap into the resonance that's beyond the construct of anything that we speak of, just the now, the nothing, the everything, it will be self-evident because you can create something from this that is so bound within a construct that you're drawing a clear emanated path from your expression as a catalyst, a conduit that is entering an access to the nothing, yet it's represented as the something, and it's a continual cycle. It's like, as within Taoism, we call it a bellows. There's a contracting and expansion, which is the universe, yet the cosmos. Yet humans or men are not, and they exhaust. They are not a bellows. They cannot continually contract and expand. They are limited. They are mortal. And when you accept you are not, then all of a sudden things change. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's well said. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else to say, to be honest with you. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, and this is a moment that we share as just a being. And so for myself, I just continue to resonate. For perhaps Gary, for the audience, all intents and purposes, he may spend a moment after this conversation and just be with a shift of what is the now for him. As it's been altered, it's been expanded. You've expanded, you've dilated to another viewpoint of this nothingness that we speak of.
I do that often.
And on that beautiful note, and I would like to put all your social media and where people can find you under this podcast.
Of course.
And I want everyone to go out, my students, the OGs of the 126, all the subscribers to the channel, everyone throughout social media. And I want to have people explore Gary's messaging, Gary's podcast platform. Do you offer yoga teachings of any kind outside of the digital platform? Or, from a podcasting platform? Do you offer this over online, or?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
The yoga teachings, all the things that you've embodied, do you share that more, not just from the podcast platform, but perhaps maybe a website or somewhere where people can lean on your understanding of things for further exploration?
I actually don't have a website. I just have social media, and I don't teach myself, really. I don't make any solo videos at this point. It's really just bringing on other people for them to teach, and I sort of teach in that way. I teach through others. Sometimes I do some monologues, but for the most part at this point in my path, it's just conversating with others. But maybe down the line I will decide to partake in shedding light upon this nothingness, this state of awareness. But yeah, no website at this point. You can just search my name on YouTube, Gary Haskins. Search me on Facebook, Instagram, and anywhere else, and you'll most likely find me. I'm pretty sure if you find me, just search Gary Haskins on YouTube. Probably the first person to pop up. But yeah, that's it. This was wonderful conversation. Yeah, definitely kind of speechless at this point. I don't really know. Like I said, what else is there to say? I thank you for bringing me on here. It's truly an honor. You definitely have a firm understanding in all of this. I can sense that from you. And yeah, keep doing your thing, man. Seriously, keep shedding light yourself, and I wish you all the best.
I feel like this is just the beginning of remembering our relationship for many lifetimes. Very, very.
I feel that. For sure.
I'm inviting and welcoming the eternal bond that we've had before. It's just remembering.
Yeah. Just remembering that. Yep, exactly. Well, on that note, if you ever want to come on my podcast and we could do a little more remembering,
Yeah, no,
I'd love to have you on.
I would love to, my friend.
Of course.
I'm looking forward to that. We could set up some dates after we finish here. I have one last question for you.
Mhm.
What is your definition of consciousness?
Silence. There is no definition. I think we said it in many different ways. We tried to define it within the last 2 hours, but there is no definition. I guess with the words "I am that I am," you could kind of define it like that. Yeah, but I even like to expound upon that and just say "am." No, I am, because that could create a subject and object orientation. Just say amness, isness, the immediate felt presence of the here and now. Like I said, many different labels, many different names, but there is no definition. That's my definition.
That's beautiful. It's perfection.
Thank you.
I've never heard the same answer. It's always now.
It's always now. And we are that now. We are part of this now. This ever changing now, this eternal now that always was, always is, and always will be. That's consciousness, essentially. It all comes from that. So yeah, that's all I gotta say.
That was beautiful, brother. I want to thank you for sharing your time today. I'm very grateful. And,
I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you, and I'm welcoming our continual bonding and further conversation on both platforms for the future, because I would love to welcome you back here. There's so much to speak on. And I'm sure that through your own seeking and your own now moments, that in a day, a week, a month, things are expansive. Things have many, as the Taoists would say, consciousness is a diamond. The facets continue to present themselves. It's all from the one. Perfection.
Amen to that. Amen. That's great. Well, I thank you for having me, man. This was amazing. You're a special individual, and like I said, keep on keeping on.
Thank you, brother, and you too. And in closing, I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life, and I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I will see you on the next one, guys.